Hi, I feel like I've not done this in a while, so welcome back to Coffee Time. I hope you missed me. This is our weekly Sunday show where we talk all things whatever I came up with 4 hours ago. Hooray! If you're new here, then welcome and consider subscribing to the channel. I'm sure you're going to love it here. And if you don't, you can always unsubscribe later. That's totally cool and whatever. I mean, it's fine. If you're not new here, have you picked up your Coffee Time mug yet? We've been doing Coffee Time for a year now, as you can see. And these mugs are limited edition. They are going pretty quick. I only have I have just a few left, okay? There's not many left, so I grab one quick. But if you really want to, you can get it, take pictures of it with tea bags and send it as hate mail via Twitter. That's totally cool. Also, our latest Small Ball Gang t-shirt, I'm wearing this year's Small Ball Gang t-shirt, which is designed for AOS 3. It's only available for a couple of days, so do consider ordering one because it won't be available again after that. Also, dice are in stock and objectives, so act fast. Anyway, tournament terrain. Let's talk about tournament terrain. I've talked about it a lot recently. I'm pretty much living and breathing it because I can still smell the burning MDF because I've been building approximately 10 tables of MDF terrain for over the past couple of days. I'm still not finished. The claws in line. You know? There we go. What's that one? Once they're in though, it's alright. It's just that bit, that's the hard bit. Although, Riverside, don't tell me that. Let's just pretend they're not there, okay? Don't sit there and be like, oh, look at all those windows you're going to stick on in a bit, mate. God, that's just fucking rude, okay? That's not what a good friend would do. A good friend would say, wow, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. Yes, there are a lot of windows. There are 18 on each side. It's behind that board. I don't want to look at it. I can definitely smell it. But there's going to be a lot happening soon in terms of tournaments, whether that's with myself, because I'm going to be running 2 tournaments in August, because we're running one at the beginning and the end, the Hellstorm, into the Hellstorm, the Bolter, and the Chainsword, and which is what I'm building terrain for. Also in the UK, from September, there's like a monthly super major happening, with the first being the London Grand Tournament, and then it's just going all over the country and monopolising everything. Also, Games Workshop, with their article on Tuesday about MetaWatch, they've just announced the tournament layouts that they're using in the US for their 3 events that are happening in the south of America in like 3 really close locations. But they're running 3 big tournaments with standardized terrain where they'll be using controversial PERSPEX to lay out where the terrain is going to be. Anyway, I think analysing terrain is fun. And I suppose it has like 2 benefits, except for me just being able to laugh at other people's idea of a good table. One, I'm hopefully giving constructive criticism to the people who need to hear it about their tournament tables, whether they are good or bad, and they either can take it on board or they can ignore it or not even hear it in the first place. The other advantage is that I can kind of help you guys out at home if you're going to a tournament and I'm analysing the tournament pack for it, or the event you're going to use is very similar tournament terrain. I can at least give you advice about what you might see and also what might work or might not work on those boards, because ultimately the terrain layout is going to be a big deciding factor of what you take in your army list and what units can or won't work in that game. Or does it? Now, devil's advocate time, because we love a devil's advocate. Are tournament organisers telling us too much about the terrain before we go? Now, hear me out before you flip out. Let me explain. I think there's 2 types of tournament players. There's the first one who wants to go and win the event, so they will analyse the pack well in advance, they'll learn about the terrain, they'll consider what units they can take in their army that are going to utilise that terrain, or anything else that they're using in that rules pack, and then go and try and win, which is totally cool. I'm one of those people. There's also the other type of player who's more casual, who just wants to go and have like 5 cool games or 5 or 6 cool games with cool people that are varied and fun, meet new people, play new armies, all that jazz, and just want to have a good time. Also totally fine. I used to be one of those people. Either way, knowing the standard layout of the terrain before you go to an event is good, so you know you're not buying a ticket to a tournament that thinks this is okay for a board when you're charging people to turn up. But I've said it a few times, what is a standard layout? Now, a standard layout is kind of like a predetermined board setup for either a deployment type or a mission type in a game that's decided before the event and usually advertised in a rules pack. They have these for the LGT, the WTC, Games Workshop, official US events, as well as these will probably be used at Warhammer World in Nottingham as well if you are local. And it happens to a whole bunch of events across the world. And generally these maps are replicated across every single board in the event. As you can see from the event packs I'm showing on screen, you can kind of see like what the terrain's going to look like or where the terrain's going to be in correspondence to the objectives or your deployment zone. for every game, so you can plan for it, but you will probably have to set up this terrain before each game when you do get there. The idea is to show well thought out terrain that is balanced for each mission or each deployment zone, and show that every table will have adequate terrain and enough terrain, so you've not got like one side with loads of terrain and the other side being Planet Bowling Ball where there's just nothing. It's supposed to be fair and balanced on either side, and usually symmetrical. The problem with knowing terrain and having a standard terrain layout, I don't think it comes down to the people who want to go and win the tournament. I think ultimately the problem lies with the more casual player. The main point of a tournament, really, in my opinion, is to go and have fun and have a bunch of varied games with varied people and ultimately have a great time. But the problem I see with standard layouts is that there's no variation of table, and the table number is suddenly very arbitrary, because like you can go from table 1 to table 100, and ultimately you could have stayed still and the opponent could have just come to you, because the terrain is exactly the same usually in these sorts of events. You rearrange the table ready, but ultimately everyone's playing on the same table of terrain. It's all in the same layout, it's all in the same position, it's all the same distance between objectives, etc. Compared to if you've got like more random tournament terrain or more random terrain in general, when you move table, there might be one that's like very different. There might be one that's like a really big foresty area, where you might have another one where it's more like a cityscape. And you get like a lot more variation compared to like a standard layout. And speaking of variation, there generally isn't any, because if there's a standard layout for a tournament pack, let's say there's a map that's using 6 ruins and 2 craters for each board from game 1, when you get to game 6, you're probably going to be using the exact same terrain. It's just going to be in a different position, which is a little bit of a shame. And I said there's not going to be many themes, because the terrain has to be functional. It has to be the same across the tournament, so it's not different. So you're just going to have, it's just going to be, everyone's going to be playing in a city. It's all going to be L shapes and a crater or a vent, and everyone's going to have the same in each half of the board. It's all going to be symmetrical, which is a little bit of a shame. Again, for the more competitive player, you like this, because then you're not going to get screwed over by being on a different board. But for the more casual player who's looking for a more varied experience, this can be a little bit of a shame, a little bit of a downfall to this type of layout. Because realistically, at the end of the day, no board setup is going to be perfect for every deployment type or every mission, because if you've got the terrain in one direction, you set up on it 6 different ways, your models and units are going to be in different positions each game. They're not going to be able to utilize the same buildings every time, which makes it varied agreeably, but also you can get screwed over if there isn't quite enough terrain in the right place, where you deploy your army and your opponent goes first and just shoots you off the board. And that's what this type of terrain is designed to do. It's designed to make it fair, have good coverage near the objectives if needed, but ultimately no one gets screwed over early game. It's designed to be able to like hide a lot of your army, hide some of your key units before you have to move out and start like attacking the opponent, and that's where you're supposed to lose your army, not before you've had a turn. But for more competitive minded, they might be an advantage, because they can look at these maps that are put out in the rules pack, and they can like judge how the terrain might affect a game, or how the game might go depending what army they're using. And they can like build an army ready for that terrain to utilize the tools that they have available, and be like, look, I'm playing on this, so this is what's going to be really good, so I'm going to use that. And realistically, a player can just peruse the rules pack, look through it, decide what's going to be good, decide what's going to be bad, and then work around it. Are you going to be playing on like a heavily dense WTC or World Team Championship type board? Then maybe you can consider like a really fast combat army that can utilize all the walls that are on there and hide behind them, and then charge from out of line of sight if there is anything with big scary guns, and make combat without getting shot too much. And that's the way they can win. Does the standard terrain have really light boards, in fact, where they don't have a lot of heavy cover? Then AdMech are already doing really well. You can just take them and obliterate your opponent off all of the objectives and laugh at them when they have no models left and you've not moved but still won the game. Or bring Tau, because Tau do alright when there's no terrain, don't they? Now, is this a good thing? Are organisers telling us too much about the terrain before the event? Now, I'm posing this as a question because ultimately I'm a little bit biased, because I do think it's a good thing. Because I can do all of the above. I can analyse that terrain, I can think about what army I'm going to take, and kind of like be at my best play, because I'm bringing the right sort of army for the right terrain that I'm playing on. Like in a real life situation, a tactician is going to be sending the relevant troops or the relevant like military personnel to a situation that's going to best be at that best advantage. It's not going to be a disadvantage. So maybe as a war game, maybe we should that as well, because that's what we are. We're representing generals and tacticians that are supposed to overcome all odds and then beat these beat the opponent, you know? But again, I'm posing this the question because that's what I think. But really, would you rather have the terrain layouts be totally open before the event, or would you prefer to have the terrain layouts totally secret so consummate generals can plan on the fly and deal with the cards they're dealt at that moment, rather than bring in the cards that they need because they know what terrain's going to be there? Or do you just hate standardized terrain altogether? Would you prefer random terrain on each board and then ultimately talk about deal with the situation where one board's not going to cater to six games, but having standard terrain sucks, so maybe we'll just have to get over it? Personally, I see more good than bad coming out of knowing what terrain is going to be available at an event or how it's going to be laid out, because there are some people out there who want to run events on the cheap and make do with some pretty bad boards. When they do have these bad boards, sometimes players don't find out until they are at the event, and ultimately they get screwed over by it, where you go like, okay, I've turned up to this table, there's no terrain in my deployment zone, I got obliterated turn one. Where really, I think you should know where your money's going, and you should have like a peace of mind of knowing that your money's going towards a weekend where you're going to be playing on 5 cool tables with 5 cool opponents, and ultimately having lots of fair games where only the dice and your tactics are letting you down, rather than the battlefield that you've been left with because you're on table 60 and they've got some like chicken wire and, I don't know, a lump of sand in the corner for terrain, which isn't on. Well, for my own events, you know, put my money where my mouth is. Well, I think standardized terrains and standardized layouts are the fairest way for a tournament to run, where players aren't going to be screwed over by a bad layout. But I don't like the idea of every single board being the same, as I've already mentioned, because then the table number doesn't matter. So I'm doing, for my own events, into the Hellstorm, the Bolter and the Chainsword, I'm doing something unique and a world first, I believe. So I'm going to be using 4 different well-known standardized layouts in one event. I'm going to be using a healthy mix of WTC style boards, as you can see on screen. I'm also going to be using the infamous LGT style with the big 12-inch obscuring blocks. I'm also going to be using GameMat.eu standard tournament layouts. And finally, I will be using the brand new Games Workshop tournament standard as advertised in MetaWatch. I'm even providing the PERSPEX, so I'm sure that'll be fine. As far as I'm aware, this hasn't been done before, so if anyone else decides to do something like this, then they're just copying me, just like they're copying all my videos too. But that's just my opinion, you know? That's just what I think. I don't know everything, it's just what I feel about the situation. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments, or if you want to, I do stream every single Monday and Wednesday at 6 PM. Find links down to that in the description. You can join us live. We can have a great conversation there and have a bit more of a fluid flow about what you think in particular, whether you agree or disagree with what I said, or ultimately what your opinions are of like standard tournament layouts. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and generally what the general consensus is about it. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching today. Appreciate you all hanging out. It's been really fun. If you like this sort of chat, then consider liking the video and subscribing for more. I do videos like this almost daily, and also battle reports and stuff, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget, you can grab a mug from hellstormwargaming.co.uk/shop, as well as dice, t-shirts, objectives. Don't forget, everything is pretty much limited run. It's all running out of stock, so grab it before you miss out. Don't wait around. Okay, enough shilling. You can now hate me in the comments. Love you all.